Tisztelt vendégeink, hölgyeim és uraim! Köszöntöm Önöket az Osztrák Nagykövetség, az Osztrák Kulturális Fórum, a Magyarországi Zsidó Hitközségek Szövetsége, valamint az Izrael Állam Nagykövetsége nevében a Nemzetközi Holokauszt napi megemlékezésen.
Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you on behalf of the Austrian Embassy, the Austrian Cultural Forum, the Federation of the Hungarian Jewish Communities, and the Embassy of the State of Israel on the International Holocaust Remembrance Day.
Az ENSZ közgyűlése 2005. november 1-én elfogadta a 60/7-es határozatot, amely január 27-ét a holokauszt áldozatainak nemzetközi emléknapjává nyilvánította. Ezen a napon a holokausztra és annak áldozataira emlékeznek világszerte. 77 évvel Auschwitz felszabadítását követően fontosabb, mint valaha emlékeztetni magunkat a holokauszt egyetemes tanulságaira, előmozdítva a közös emlékezés kultúrát.
The United Nations General Assembly passed a resolution number 60/7 on the 1st of November 2005 to designate the 27th of January as the International Day of Commemoration in the memory of the victims of the Holocaust, the day upon which every year the world would mark and remember the Holocaust and its victims. 77 years after the liberation of Auschwitz, it is more important than ever to remind ourselves of the universal lessons of the Holocaust and to foster a shared culture of remembrance.
Hölgyeim és uraim, kérem Önöket, hogy álljunk fel és adózzunk egy perces néma csenddel a holokauszt áldozatainak emléke előtt.
Dear ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, we kindly ask you to stand and let us stand for 1 minute of silence commemorating the victims of the Holocaust.
Köszönöm, kérem foglaljanak helyet.
Thank you very much. Please be seated.
Felkérem ő excellenciája Alexander Grubmayert, Ausztria magyarországi nagykövetét, hogy mondja el beszédét.
And now I would like to ask His Excellency Alexander Grubmayer, the ambassador of Austria to Hungary, to deliver his speech.
Excellency Ambassador Handelsmann, Excellencies, dear Mr. President Heisler, dear ladies and gentlemen, dear guests. 77 years have passed since the concentration and extermination camp Auschwitz was liberated by the Red Army on 27th January 1945. The vast majority could not experience this liberation. I stand close to those who are still with us today and who have gathered once again this afternoon at Auschwitz-Birkenau, and I thank them especially for standing up for the memory at an incredibly cruel and inhuman place. It is actually very hard to imagine how it feels to return once or repeatedly to the site of the greatest crime against humanity, but they do so in memory of all those who were unable to leave Auschwitz and the other concentration and extermination camps alive. In their memorial activities, they are an example to us, but also an obligation to keep in our thoughts all those who could not leave Auschwitz and the many other concentration and extermination camps, who were torn from their homes, our societies, and whose names we often do not even know. For us, the generation of remembrance, the connection to this day is an obligation. For us, the International Day of Remembrance of the Victims of the Holocaust Day must always be a strong moment of remembrance of the victims, of their life stories, of the voids they left in our societies when they were deported. Beyond that, however, this day is also a recurring obligation for us to take a stand and act against all forms of racism. Here I would like to quote Elie Wiesel, Holocaust survivor and writer. "We must always take sides. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the victim. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented." Austria's connection with Auschwitz is close and has just experienced a special new point of reference in 2021. In October of last year, the new Austrian permanent exhibition was opened in Block 17 of Auschwitz I. Such an exhibition had already existed since 1978 and was designed at that time as an exhibition of the victims. The newly created exhibition, however, tells the story not only of the fate of the Austrian victims in Auschwitz and the resistance of Austrian prisoners, but also of the involvement of Austrians as perpetrators and helpers in the crimes committed there. Especially with the Austrian perspective, there can only be a broad remembrance effort that also deals with the participation of large parts of the Austrian population in the Holocaust, with anti-Semitism, racism, and the path to the inhuman fascism of the 1930s. The title of the new Austrian permanent exhibition in Auschwitz is Distance, Austria and Auschwitz. The term distance refers to the geographical distance between Austria and Auschwitz, which was part of the National Socialist strategy of denying mass murder. At the same time, distance also means annihilation, the physical removal of those deported to Auschwitz from Austria and from life. It is our obligation to counteract this removal, to bring the victims with our remembrance back into the center of our societies. I would like to thank Ambassador Jakob Hadas-Handelsmann and his team, the director of the Austrian Cultural Forum and his team, as well as you as participants for the initiative to remember together today. The film The Testament, an Austrian-Israeli co-production, is particularly appropriate for this purpose, as it shows us that the memory of the Holocaust can and will never let us go. Thank you.
Köszönöm, nagykövet úr, és most szeretném felkérni Jakob Hadas-Handelsmannt, Izrael állam magyarországi nagykövetét, hogy mondja el beszédét.
Thank you, Your Excellency, and I would like to ask His Excellency Jakob Hadas-Handelsmann, Ambassador of the State of Israel to Hungary, to deliver his speech.
A dear friend and colleague, as well as the co-host of this event, Ambassador Grubmeier, distinguished friends and colleagues from the Diplomatic Corps, members of the Israeli Austrian embassies, the Austrian Culture Institute, religious leaders, Grace, Eminence, leaders of the Jewish community, Mr. Andras Heisler, and ladies and gentlemen, simple people as all of us. I'm honored to be here with all of you this evening as we stand together at this joint commemoration event as diplomats, religious leaders, politicians, members of the Israeli and Austrian embassies in Budapest, people from all walks of life, and simply human beings. On this day, January 27th, we pay tribute to the memory of the victims of the Holocaust and fully commit ourselves to counter anti-Semitism, racism, and any other form of intolerance and discrimination. 77 years after the end of the World War, anti-Semitism is unfortunately on the rise again all around the world. Ladies and gentlemen, it is important to mention that we are now into the 5th year of the worldwide We Remember campaign, which is a commemorative ceremony marking the International Holocaust Day. We strongly believe that if we remember together, the campaign delivers a stronger message to the public. By remembering, we are reminded of how careful we should be that the Holocaust should never ever happen again. The We Remember signs are in honor of the 6 million Jews murdered in the Holocaust and the message that the ongoing anti-Semitism and hatred must stop once and for all, and that it should never happen again. Ladies and gentlemen, as part of this We Remember campaign, an award-winning film titled The Testament, which is an Israeli-Austrian co-production or an Austrian-Israeli co-production, will be screened shortly. The film takes place in a town on the border between Austria and Hungary and deals with the story of a massacre which happened toward the end of the Second World War. It is a story about a Holocaust scholar who has been trying to locate a mass grave in the fields near Lensdorf, Austria. This film includes the topic of Holocaust denial, as the main character risks everything to uncover the truth whilst reviewing the testimonies of Holocaust survivors. And the truth is not always what it is thought to be at the beginning. As said before, as human beings, remembering the Shoah is our shared global responsibility. And the reason for this is that because we as human beings have the tendency to forget, and the only way to prevent forgetting is through education and remembrance. Education could be in form of public campaigns incorporating Holocaust in curricula and textbooks in secondary schools, history courses, and many other ways. We all need to take active measures to combat anti-Semitism and Holocaust denial through different forms of information and communication technologies. May the memory of our brothers and sisters be blessed forever, never again. Thank you very much.